This is the Asus ROG Ally. The ROG Ally is a handheld gaming console from the division at Asus that manufactures high-end gaming PCs, called Republic of Gamers. Here's what's in the box. The device comes in a sleek-looking box, and you're greeted with the Ally once you open the lid. Included are a tabletop stand, the charger, and the instructions manual. If you pre-ordered the ROG Ally, it comes with the official original casing. The ROG Ally comes equipped with the Ryzen Z1 Extreme APU, a 7000 series chip that's customized for handheld devices. It also has the new RDNA 3 integrated graphics, and comes with 16GB of DDR5 RAM. It ships with 512GB PCIe NVMe SSD and has options to expand your storage through a microSD card. What this all means is that you basically have a really good gaming PC that fits right into your hands, and it only weighs 608 grams. The display is a 7-inch touchscreen, which outputs at Full HD with a 16:9 screen, and has a refresh rate of 120Hz. It also boasts an impressive maximum brightness of 500 nits. The Ally is powered by a 40 Wh/h battery, but it can charge up to 65 watts. However, the Ally draws 30, 15, and 9 watts in turbo, performance, and silent modes, respectively. This would suggest anywhere from 1 to 4 hours in battery life, depending on your mode and the type of games you like to play. It also has Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2 as your connectivity options. At the top of the device is a 35mm headphone jack and a microSD card slot. To the right, we have a dual-purpose interface with a USB-C port and a port to connect the XG mobile platform. The USB-C port is used to charge your device and connect it to other peripherals. Next, we have our volume button controls and charging and power indicator LEDs, and the power button, which is also a fingerprint reader. At the top of these buttons are the vents for active cooling fans. The device is encased in a plastic rough texture and has ridges on the sides, providing better grip and preventing fingerprint markings. Housed inside the Ally is a gyroscope to detect and respond to motion and rotation, while vibrating pads built into the hand grips deliver haptic feedback to enhance immersion. All of the controls are located at the upper half of the Ally, which makes it pretty ergonomic. It also has 2 function buttons at the back. It's pretty much the same standard Xbox controller layout. The Ally features 2 analog sticks, the D-pad, the basic face buttons, the top, shoulder, and trigger buttons, 2 function keys at the back, and 4 other buttons on either side of the screen. Here's a pro tip. If you need to pull up your on-screen keyboard, hold on to the 2 rear buttons and press up on your D-pad. If you need your task manager, it's the rear buttons and the D-pad down. The function buttons are mappable to various functions such as mimicking other buttons on the controller, actions like showing the keyboard, the desktop, or switching your microphone on and off. You can even map it to a mouse click. The analog sticks feel good and smooth and responsive. They feel a lot like analog sticks on console controllers, and as a cosmetic bonus, there is an LED ring around it with colors and modes you can customize in the settings. You can also configure settings for the analog sticks in a separate settings menu. The D-pad is pretty basic, but it does feel like it has a solid build to it. It is good for gamers who like the added 8-point accuracy in their games. Above the D-pad are 2 buttons, one that functions as your standard select button, and the other is the command center button. The command center acts as a quick menu for various functions you might want to access while playing the game. For example, you can adjust the screen brightness or access your game profile. But what is most interesting is that you can also change between 3 different operating modes: silent, performance, and turbo. Each of these modes have different wattage requirements, and we will go into more details when we go into some gameplay later in the video. In the command center, you can also change the screen resolution and refresh rate, and also the control mode, to prioritize either power or performance with a push of a button. All the quick functions in the command center are mappable and switchable in the Armoury Crate, so you can move the functions around or even add controls to customize your gaming experience. And finally, above these buttons is a microphone, and below the D-pad is one of your front-facing speakers, which are located on either side. The placement of the speakers are also very smart because there's no opportunity for your thumbs, fingers, or palms to accidentally cover the speakers while you're gaming. On the right side, we have the Start button and the Armoury Crate button. The Armoury Crate button opens up your game library, which will automatically detect and add any installed games into one page. The Armoury Crate is an awesome feature that complements the Ally to make the gamer's experience as seamless as possible with the Windows 11 OS. Other than the game library, you can edit your command center, customize key maps, screenshot media gallery, system preferences, help and user centers, and where you can update your Ally. All your essentials are in one place. The face buttons are your typical Xbox ABXY configuration, and they're comfortable and have good travel. They feel like they belong to a console controller, although they are a bit more clicky. The trigger and shoulder buttons both feature a rough texture, which feels nice to the touch and has the right amount of travel. The ROG Ally runs with Windows 11. It takes about 18 seconds to boot to desktop, and just like any other Windows PC, you have to go through routine updates and setting up of Windows when you boot up your device for the first time. Having Windows as the default OS is a nice touch, and you can access and install platforms such as Game Pass and Steam. In addition, you can run it like a PC too, with all the features you would expect from a PC, like having a web browser and installing your own applications. Now, let's try some games and see how the experience is like between three modes: silent, performance, and turbo. For these tests, we are going to play without the charger plugged in and at maximum brightness and volume. We're also going to turn off the FPS limiter. In Hogwarts Legacy, the game is still unable to hit the max FPS of 120, apart from being in the menu screen in turbo mode. There's also a significant drop in FPS when you toggle to silent from performance mode. The audio also suffers horribly in silent mode. Based on the results with non-AAA games like Honkai Star Rail, the ROG Ally tends to do very well both in performance and turbo mode. Do note, however, the frame rate for Honkai Star Rail is capped at 60 FPS, so this is more of a software limitation in the game rather than hardware. However, if it's played in silent mode, the game's frame rate drops significantly below the minimum frame rate required. Simple and light games like Pico Park tend to give optimum gameplay experience for the ROG Ally, with its consistent frame rate at 120 FPS and slight temperature fluctuations between the three performance modes. Casual indie games like Stardew Valley work very well with the ROG Ally. Capped at a max FPS of 60, the frame rates for Stardew Valley remained very consistent throughout the gameplay. The temperature also remains very consistent with minimal fluctuations. Hence, the ROG Ally has proven to be very strong for games such as this. So far, the Ally has done very well both in performance and turbo modes by keeping the game at a constant 120 FPS. But when played in silent mode, we experience dropped frame rates and skipped frames. Even in turbo mode, Fortnite is unable to hit 120 FPS. Performance mode dropped the frame rate to about 30 with minimal fluctuations, except when the game is in main menu. When in silent mode though, the game's frame rate dropped drastically, and it's definitely not a suitable game mode for games like Fortnite. GTA 5 was a surprisingly immersive experience on the ROG Ally. On turbo mode, it ranged from about 100 to 120 FPS. In performance mode, it kind of dropped by half to about 60 FPS, but in silent mode, it runs at a very shabby 20 FPS. So for AAA titles, we highly recommend for you to play only in turbo or performance mode. The ability to change modes on a fly is definitely a plus, and gamers are now given the freedom to prioritize gameplay performance or battery life. For games such as Pico Park and Stardew Valley, gamers can get away with playing in silent mode and not have to compromise on frame rates while saving on battery life. For games such as Hades, maybe a bump to performance mode is a good balance. For resource-intensive games such as Hogwarts Legacy and GTA 5, players unfortunately have to sacrifice the battery life to play in turbo mode for optimal gaming experience. The ROG Ally is a beast of a machine in terms of specs and screen definition, and it makes gaming something of a beauty if you can overlook some of the frame rate issues for certain games. As of today, Asus has released a new firmware and BIOS update, and we are certain there is more in the pipeline. The product and software is still new, so there's lots of room for improvement for the device to be optimized for gaming. Considering the Ally was only made with the Steam Deck as its proper predecessor to base handhelds off from, this is a decent drop from Asus. There are also a ton of awesome gaming peripherals and accessories coming out that can be paired with the Ally, such as the XG Mobile and the dock support. Watch out for our next video where we compare other handheld consoles with the ROG Ally.